Hi there, and welcome to Matchless Fire Videos 2.0, the video that helps answer the question, is it really possible to make a fire with nothing but an empty jar, a full bladder, and a piece of space blanket, a chocolate bar, and a can of pop? How about saran wrap and water? Is it possible to tame fire so that it won't burn you? We'll get to all these things very soon, but first you're going to have to endure some basic science. There's three things that you need in order to have fire. They are heat, fuel, and oxygen. Oxygen is in plentiful supply in the air around us. That's not a problem usually. Fuel can be found all around us too. We all think about burning wood, but other things are very useful for burning, including when it comes to making a fire without matches. Tinder, which is the very fine, tiny material that we want to catch our spark, can be made out of cotton, dryer lint, very fine ground bark, pounded stems from plants, or even one of my favorite ones, from very fine metal. Because we're here in Utah, one of the most common things we'll have available for making our bark nest is bark off of the either sagebrush or the juniper tree. We often call it a cedar tree here in Utah, but most of these around here are actually junipers. So the first thing you have to do is to crush and rub this bark together. That's going to separate it out into long fibers, which will form the outside of the nest, medium-sized bark particles, which will form the inner part, and then a very fine dust, which will actually act as the tinder to receive our spark. And you rub it together. And as that rubs together, you'll see the parts coming off of it. Be sure to have a dry surface to catch these with. You see that dust coming off also. So these long fibers that are left here, you can take and curl them around so it looks like a little bird's nest. Then loosely with your fingers, gather up the median fibers, like that, put them right there in the middle. And then what's left behind after you pick up those median fibers is this really fine dust. That dust is going to go right in the very center. That's the smallest and the finest part of this bark, and that's what you want to catch the spark. Okay, now set that right there. There is our bark nest. Now what I'd like to do is show you how to prepare tinder or charred made of charred cotton. This is pretty simple at its most rudimentary. A piece of tin foil will do, and cotton. Here I'm using cotton balls, although if you chose to, you could use a cotton twine, you could use pieces of a clean cotton cloth that have been cut up into small squares, or cotton eye patches out of your first aid kit. Burning these or heating them in the absence of oxygen. So what I'm going to do here is I'll get these burning and we're going to let them start to burn down. So at this point you just fold that tinfoil down. You're going to seal the edges without burning yourself, and shut off the oxygen supply, and we're going to leave that closed off until everything in there has stopped smoldering and is actually cooled. Okay, this is cooled down. It's time for us to get a look at our charred cotton. There they are, that blackened cotton. It's much smaller in size than when it started, and you'll see that most of what's on the exposed edge is just carbon or charcoal. But you also see that that will take a spark very easily. In fact, those things caught, all three of those caught very quickly off that one spark. That's a great way to use a tinder to get your fire going. The next fire ag I'm going to tell you about is one of the quickest ones you can use. Again, using an old favorite, the steel wool, this time a 9-volt battery. All it takes is a very quick touch, and you've got your fire egg. As you come to understand how fire works, it's going to be much easier to put a fire together. And one of the biggest reasons why we learn how to make fire without matches is that if you understand those principles well enough to make a fire without matches, then making them with matches is a breeze. Now, this heat that we're going to use to make our fire can come from a wide variety of sources. We all think about friction. That's where you take the two sticks and you rub them together. It works very well, and that's still one of the best things in extreme weather conditions. But there are simpler ways of doing it too. We're going to explore some different ways that is going to produce either a spark or an ember that we hope to coax into a flame.